Thank you for coming. My name is Michelle Thomas. I am a newbie on the StoryMaps team. I guess this is my second month. Danielle over here actually met me in a meeting on my very first day, so that kind of tells you how new I am. But I feel like I've known the StoryMaps team for forever, since the product launched. So I come from the federal government. I worked with the Department of Interior, and I also worked with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. I worked in communication and digital media and web and all things social. So I come at StoryMaps from a totally different perspective than a lot of my colleagues. So let me tell you a little bit about how I got into StoryMaps and why I fell in love with StoryMaps, and give you some examples of what people are doing with StoryMaps, and then talk a little bit about communication, how we at these agencies use StoryMaps as a part of an overall communication plan, and how we want to work with you guys as you create StoryMaps to help promote. So it was right before the summer of, yes, showing my age, 2015. And I was putting out a summer road trip to take people from across the country through state by state, all of their public lands that they can do. So the idea was every single day we would go to different places in the state and highlight that particular area. We had the entire plan together. We were really excited about it. We had states on board. They were going to send us content, photos, videos. It was awesome. And the only problem was we had a website that it needed some work, a lot of work. And we didn't have a place to host this amazing road trip. And of course, when you think road trip, you think, I follow it on the map, right? I had seen one of my colleagues who used Esri for a totally different kind of project locally. And I thought, I wonder if that would work. This was a Thursday, and we had to launch the campaign next Monday. So our GIS people were nice enough to give me access to everything I needed to actually get into ArcGIS. I didn't know anything about that. I mean, at all. But a lot about digital media and websites. I thought I can do this thing. So my husband and my daughter went away on a camping trip, 4-H courses, and I stayed home and played with ArcGIS and StoryMaps all weekend. And fortunately, that Monday morning, I was able to launch an entire campaign that we ran for several years, and actually grew our Instagram account by over 200,000 followers. So the moral of that story is that even someone who doesn't know much about GIS, or somebody who does know a lot, can get into StoryMaps and make something beautiful, take assets they already have, and in no time actually learn how to use this product and make something successful. And all the colleagues that I've taught to use it have been really excited about it. If they had the ability to create something like that in like an hour, they've been able to create their own story maps. Yes, it may have needed a little bit of work, a little bit of research behind it, but everyone I know that have shown story maps and taught to use story maps has been really proud of their work and really excited about what they've done. And again, this is everyone from I already know GIS to can you help me with my Word document? How do I save an Excel worksheet? So they love story maps. So as you guys probably already know from the comments with about Alan Carroll, but for those of you who have met him, you know that he's an amazing person. He can write a story. He just sits down in a couple hours, he has something beautiful. It's amazing what he can do with a story, but it's also amazing how he can put it all into place and put an entire story and make it relevant to a country or a community or an actual organization that works in specific communities. So he put this story map together in our new product. So we launched the story maps that most of you know, around 2011, 12-ish. And ever since then, we've been gathering feedback from users about what they want, about what they like. We've been creating new templates. We've taken all of that feedback together, the development team has, and has created a new product that kind of combines, or will combine eventually. We're flying the plane as we're building it, so it's in its first iteration. It's in beta right now, but it puts all of those things that people love together into one template, so you don't actually have to pick, you know, Cascade or Shortlist or Journal. All of those capabilities eventually will be in one builder together, and you can move back and forth. So it's kind of like building with Legos, how you take a piece and another piece and another piece over here and another piece over here. And Ross is going to give you that demo tonight, but it's very easy just to take pieces and put the entire story map together, and eventually you'll be able to move pieces around, which we think is pretty exciting. So in this builder, we show a little bit of everything, but these are some of the ways that people are using story maps currently, and some things that you might not think of. All of you probably think, yes, public engagement. Of course, people use story maps to show beautiful photos or to show great data and make a point. So I think that that's something that most people already know. But we have other people who are using clear messages through data and through photos. But this is kind of one of my favorites, because you don't always think about this with story maps, is that you have beautiful, beautiful story maps with photos, but you also have something that maybe it's one or two pieces of paper, maybe it's your end of year report that people don't necessarily always read. You can actually take that and make it into a story map. So this is a high-level overview of a presentation. So you can put your entire report using pages into a presentation that you can get in front of people, but that you can also give them the link so that they can go through and get the information themselves. Again, people are doing annual reports. People are making things for their staff at the companies. We saw that someone in the new beta who was playing around actually did an announcement of their business, introducing the purpose of the business, inviting people to come, and introducing all of the staff. So we're starting to see a lot more of that in the StoryMaps platform. And we're also seeing a lot more promoting an event. It's a very easy way to gather information. The great thing about something like this and promoting an event is, let's say if we had a story map about this event, we could tell you where to park, we could tell you all the locations that are nearby to eat beforehand, all in a story map in one place with one link. You can put a business portfolio together. But one of my very favorite, of course, obvious, is learning and instructions. But one of my very favorites is actually going through a lesson and teaching. And you can actually build your lessons right in. We're seeing a lot more personal narratives coming out. And with mobile technology, obviously there are a lot more online guides. We're seeing online guides for birds, for flowers, for different kinds of trees. As people are walking through, they're using tours to actually walk through a park and actually see the different parts of the park on an online app. And obviously constituent engagement, binders and catalogs. And these are just a few of the ways that people are using this. One of my favorites recently that I've seen is that this person here actually used story maps to do an interactive resume. She'd made about at least 10 story maps that she actually embedded in her resume. So she actually went through and showed all of her projects and put them in there so that all employers could not only see what she'd done, but actually click on them and how they benefited the community, which I thought was a really interesting way to use it. So everything from messaging to practical business use to personal use to something like a resume to market yourself. So a few things that I just wanted to kind of share with you guys today based on what I've done with the federal government and marketing and using story maps as a whole marketing campaign. Is thinking about the best practices for story map campaigns. Obviously, build the story around a message. I think that's pretty obvious to most people, but it's really, I think, an important part of storytelling, especially if you're looking at communicating out a message and using a lot of social media platforms, is to get the main message and always drive towards your mission so that every piece that you create targets that. Use all of the platforms that are actually available. So we see a lot, very often, that people will build a story map and they might make it live, they might put it on their blog, but that's about all they do, and it's a lot of work. They have beautiful products, but they don't necessarily think strategically about how to share that across platforms and with partners. Again, using partnership for the greatest reach. Most of the story maps that I see created are created in partnership with organizations and with us. So we'd like to see you guys actually leverage us to help share your stories as well. You need to have a home base for your story map campaign. A website can be that base, another story map can be that base. But if you have more than one story map, trying to put all of those together into one place and point people to one place. Brand images, set clear guidelines across organizations, and measure success. So let me actually give you examples. So at the Department of Interior, we did the My Public Lands road trip. So again, this is old school. It's before we had Cascade, before it was mobile friendly. Had to think about how do we actually present something like a road trip. So as you can see, there are a lot of dots on this map, but we used an actual story map to gather all of the content. And on each of the tabs, we showed state by state all the different places that we visited. And then you can actually go through and click. And again, it was old school, so we had to embed it in Tumblr. It wasn't the best option at the time, but it worked out. And we were able to use the exact same story map, the journal format, to go step by step through all the different places that we visited. So we ended up doing, I think it was 13 different weeks all across the country. And every single day we updated these live so that people could see the updates and follow along. One of the coolest things, I think, about this campaign is we had people later come to me and tell me, one person said, you know, my aunt was telling me that she has multiple sclerosis and can't get outside, but that she follows along the road trip every single day because that is a way for her to enjoy her public lands virtually and digitally. So maybe you've always wanted to go to Wyoming, but you couldn't go to Wyoming. Story maps provide a window, a beautiful way to present. And again, I didn't know anything about GIS. I'd never used this platform, but I was able to very quickly make beautiful story maps that really inspired people and got people outside. Along with that, I was able to work with a team from across the country with every single story we put out, with every single location that we visited. I was able to go through and use all the social media platforms available to us and platforms that our partners had, like Instagram and Tumblr and Twitter and Facebook, and yes, even Pinterest and Flickr. We actually had little folders for every single state we visited. YouTube. Stellar. Most people haven't heard of Stellar, but they are tiny little books. We use that as well. And we use Vine. Always a favorite. Yeah, had to see that twice. So the great thing is that with all of that, working with people across the country, within our organization and with our partners, we were able to conceive that the impact was pretty large. We more than almost doubled our Instagram, and then the following year again, we grew it by another 100,000, and that was just for the summers. One of the neat things that we ended up doing on Instagram, we had a lot of people following us from Tumblr and from Instagram. We were able to actually have a campaign that had people post use on their post, tag it with My Public Lands Road Trip, and we actually posted our favorite every weekend, and we were posting other people's content, which got us a lot of followers. So, but you can see that if you're working with partners, you're taking something that's a story map that is beautiful, but doesn't always take that long to create. It's something that puts what you're doing into place, but if you pair it with social media and with partnerships, you got a lot of return on investment of that. Then I think trying to actually go through and measure how many people are visiting your story maps. Ross, what's the number? How long did, where's Ross? Lost Ross. So, you know, most people don't stay on web pages very long, but most people actually stay on stories. I think the average was 7 or 8 minutes actually stay on stories, which I think is pretty amazing as somebody who looks at web numbers and people jump from site to site. So then I left Department of Interior and went over to Department of Agriculture, and yes, that is a chicken. And started a campaign called Fridays on the Farm. For time's sake, I will not go into that too much, but basically, when I joined Department of Agriculture, I went to a conference, and it was an amazing conference because they have partners from all over the country talking about agriculture and what they do in agriculture and how they work on conservation across the country. The neat thing was that you had people talking about it from different perspectives. So you had people working on environmental markets and carbon credits. And then you had other people who were working in inner city churches and health. Everyone coming at it from a different perspective, but they were all trying to reach one goal, which was to improve conservation on private lands. And to me, one story is powerful, but a group of stories together and a collection of stories is even more powerful. So we created Fridays on the Farm. We used a short list to put all of those pieces together into one story map. Every single week we ran a new story. They're still working on it now. Ran a new story with called Fridays on the Farm. And basically every Friday we would visit virtually a farmer, a rancher who was out there actually working on their land, working with USDA on conservation programs, on different kinds of food programs, and highlighted those people with their story, with videos, photos every single Friday. And so it's become a really popular thing within the agriculture community because everybody knows every Friday there's a new story, and I think it's on year 3 now. One of the neat things about that, you always get those personal stories, is that all of the people in the field who give us the stories, they said these farmers really just become like rock stars in their community. They're really like, everybody shares the links, and it's a really big deal for them to be recognized for the work that they're doing in the community. And it's neat for our employees as well. And this is really where I think the most important thing for me in the story maps was, you know, we were a small team in our office. And this is probably true for most of you in your organizations. You probably have one or two people who are working in your office and building everything. So we had a lot of people in the field sending us stories, but two of us could make all of those stories every single Friday. So we had to come up with a way to train people to use story maps as well, but also we wanted a consistent look and feel for it. So we went through and we created branding for all of our different social media channels, and the little banner on the bottom is actually the separator in the story that we used. And then we actually created a little cheat sheet, all of the required elements. So every Fridays on the farm has to have a certain number of elements. These are the elements of the order, so that if you taught somebody in 30 minutes how to make a story map, they would know this is exactly what I have to put in this story. So everyone from DC all the way to Wyoming, California coast, they all had the exact same documents to make stories for us across the nation, which for us was a really huge deal. And within an organization that has limited resources, but lots of people out on the ground who can get stories, it's a great idea just to come up with something very common and some common branding. Get out of this thing. All right. I'll share one thing with you guys. So the other thing that we did was we were working with at least 3 agencies with USDA at one time, every single Friday. And so we had to find a way to articulate exactly who was posting which part of our social media, at what time and what day, and who was responsible. And so we all had the same messages. So we came up actually with a TikTok for every single Fridays on the farm. And so it had who was posting what, but it also had our strategy overview, the description, the title, but where people could find each of the main story map, the others, the individual story map. It had every blog story, every social media post, every asset, and for every story we had a folder within our organization so that everyone involved knew exactly what folder to go to and which organization was posting which thing. It's a lot of work, but it was really very, it was very helpful to us. Again, these are folks who weren't quite sure about story maps. They were a little bit nervous about story maps. But they were able to make beautiful content, and some people obviously have a little more talent in one area than another, but they all have some consistency. They all meet the same mission. They all tell the same story about farmers. So just quickly, Ross is going to be talking to you a little bit tonight about the demo of the new product, but within the storytelling community, we're really looking with this new product to start building tools for you guys so that we can work together to help promote your stories. We can help build strategies together when we roll out your stories. So we're going to start expanding our web presence for the storytelling community. We're going to be rolling out the beta into full release this summer, and we'll have the beginnings of a web presence for a storytelling community, but that's going to grow over the next year into things where we have an active calendar, and you guys can search for data layers and you know, follow other storytellers, follow story collections. We really want it to be something that's interactive so that you always know what's happening with other storytellers. You learn best from each other and being able to talk to each other. More opportunities for blog posts. We've been doing a lot of our blog posts having actual storytellers do interviews with us or actually be guest bloggers, and that's been really helpful. We've gotten really positive feedback on that. So if you put something out, it's a great opportunity for you to tell like how you made it and why you made it and what other people can learn from you. We also want to expand our social media presence to use more of Esri's platforms to get messages out. And then again, we want to be able to work with you and help you with the strategy so that we can help you roll out your project as well. Just leveraging what we have. So as you make your stories and as you practice with the new beta, as you're ready for your organization to actually roll out your stories, my email is mthomas@esri.com. Feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about blog posts. We can talk about how we promote your stories and even get them into galleries as well. So we're hoping that with the new beta that you guys will get engaged in